This time, the landlady agreed readily that it was so quick, as if she had been waiting for this very sentence. Fang Hao was slightly taken aback, while the landlady revealed a smug smile. The situation was now very clear. Fang Hao had displayed strength beyond her comprehension, and it seemed Pearl City would have to listen to Fang Hao from now on. Dwelling on this small tavern was no longer a wise decision. Besides, she had been the one to actively seek Fang Hao's help last night. You're not going back on your word, are you? Seeing Fang Hao's surprise, the landlady spoke. No, just a little surprised at how quickly you agreed. Fang Hao replied, recovering. What's there to be surprised about? You saved me yesterday, so naturally, I'll be following you with my subordinates from now on. The landlady smiled again. That's good. A contract is still needed. All right, from now on. The landlady wanted to tease Fang Hao a little, but glancing at Njia and the lizard man beside her, she swallowed the rest of her words. Fang Hao nodded, found a blank slave contract in the book of the Lord, and handed it to her. The landlady pricked her finger and pressed her fingerprint onto it. The contract's light entered her body, and the contract was officially established. Wenisa's loyalty to you is 92 points. Good heavens. Her loyalty was directly 92 points. It was second only to the loyalty of the lizardman Dimika recruited. Wenisa, Tier 1. Faction, human racial traits, living being. Learning, Rose Beauty. Skills, brewing. Gossip. Innate ability, basic combat proficiency. Rose Beauty. This unit opening a shop is more likely to attract customers. Brewing, proficient in brewing. Can brew high-quality wine. Gossip. Often pays attention to conversations between customers. Description, talented and beautiful. Wenisa is very popular in the commoner district, not only for her affordable wine, but also for her exaggerated chest size. In this era of scarcity, Wenisa might be a good partner choice, of course. It's all for the children. Fang Hao had been calling her landlady all this time. Only now did he know her name was Wenisa. Moreover, Wenisa's attributes were actually quite good. Although not a combat profession, she was skilled in opening shops and brewing. Rose Beauty could attract more customers, and she herself was good at brewing, making her truly suitable for opening a tavern. But a regular tavern would struggle to compete with established local taverns in Lissith City. The main competitive edge would still need to be hot pot. Seeing the final description, Fang Hao subconsciously glanced at Wenisa's ample chest. He thought to himself, who isn't a child? So are we on the same side now? Wenisa asked. Yes. Then, may I visit your territory? Wenisa asked softly with a smile. Don't you need to rest? Fang Hao counter-questioned, having not slept all night. Wenisa looked a bit tired. While he didn't mind taking her to the main territory, the journey would still take several hours. It's all right. I want to go and see your place, Wenisa said firmly. Okay, let's go then. Fang Hao got up and led the few people outside. Wenisa also stood up, gave a few instructions to the bartender, and followed Fang Hao out of the tavern. The group left Pearl City together and boarded the giant lizard. They headed towards the territory. 2 hours later, everyone returned to the territory. Even though Wenisa was mentally prepared when she saw the dense, seemingly endless skeletal undead surrounding the city, her legs instantly went weak, and her body trembled uncontrollably. This was not a city. It was hell. The giant lizard entered the city and stopped in front of the Lord's mansion. The few people jumped off the giant lizard. Fang Hao took out the spoils of war from his storage space and arranged for people to move them to their respective locations, Tianjia and Luoli, carrying the chandeliers and curtains they had chosen. Also left excitedly, Fang Hao turned back and saw Wenisa's face was pale, still unable to get off the back of the giant lizard. How is it? I thought you were quite brave. Fang Hao helped her down. Wenisa managed to get down from the giant lizard, still needing support to stand. She was braver than ordinary people, but not to this extent. Facing a gathering of hundreds of thousands of undead, not fainting was already a sign of good psychological fortitude. Fang Hao still had his own matters to attend to, so he called over a maid and said, "Take her for a tour of the city and introduce her." "Yes, master," the maid replied, stepped forward, and supported Wenisa. After calming down a bit, Wenisa also recovered somewhat and turned to leave with the maid. She had already signed a contract with Fang Hao, so she couldn't change anything. All she could Do now is accept everything before her as quickly as possible. Fang Hao entered the Lord's hall and sat on the throne. Dimika also sat down in a seat beside him. Go call the blood hunter, Fang Hao said to a maid. The maid agreed and walked out. Before long, the blood hunter landed at the door, flapping his large bat wings, and strode in. Lord, you called for me. The blood hunter saluted respectfully. Fang Hao nodded. Sit down. Let's discuss the vampire matter with you too. There were many heroes in the territory, but not many stayed in the main city. Nelson was still making skeleton heroes, so the only ones he could discuss with were Dimika and the blood hunter .as Feringia. It was better for her to protect herself. Discussing matters with her was like suddenly announcing overtime meetings after work hours, which would make her dejected. After the blood hunter sat down, Fang Hao continued. The reason the vampires occupied Pearl City this time was largely to target us. I want to hear your opinions on how we should handle this matter next. They both had contact with the vampire situation last night. Dimika and Fang Hao were responsible for occupying Pearl City. The blood hunter was responsible for rescuing the residents who were taken away, and they all returned to the city this morning. The entire operation was relatively smooth. All the vampires were eliminated, and their bodies were thrown into the conversion ground. As for the hero Cyril's body, it was sent to the organ museum, awaiting Nelson's processing to be made into a skeleton hero. Hearing Fang Hao's question, the blood hunter pondered for a moment, then spoke first. Lord, the brilliant Moon Highlands will definitely not let this go. I think we can build a fortress on the border to prevent the vampires' next move. Fielding was publicly executed. Given the vampires' nature, they would likely react excessively. Fang Hao nodded, then looked at Dimika again and asked, Dimika, what are your thoughts? Dimika spoke directly. Lord, I believe we can directly wage war on the brilliant Moon Highlands before they react. Dimitar's method was more aggressive, actively initiating war with the Huanyua Highlands. This point was actually also something Fang Hao had considered. It seems Dimitar was thinking along the same lines as him. Last time, Blackthorn used the ability Talk with Dead to interrogate the dead Palebloods. He learned that the Huanyua Highlands didn't have many troops. Although there wasn't an exact number, it was only tens of thousands in Fang Hao's opinion. This number couldn't even be considered an army. The garrison he stationed in any single fortress was over 1 million. So a force of tens of thousands posed no threat at all. The only uncertainty was the leader of the blood race in Huanyua Highlands. Red Duke, Clement Hamilton. According to the Palebloods, he was an orange-tier hero. Very powerful. Blood Hunter, what do you think? Fang Hao looked at Blood Hunter again. Blood Hunter thought for a moment. My lord, Dimitar's words also have some truth to them. The territory has the ability to capture the Huanyua Highlands in one fell swoop. But I still believe strengthening the border defenses can prevent retaliation from the blood race against Pearl City. Fang Hao nodded. Blood Hunter's thoughts were also valid. He wasn't too worried about the blood race himself. But Pearl City was vulnerable to retaliatory actions from them. All right, Dimitar, prepare over the next 2 days. Then you will lead the team and actively launch an attack on the Huanyua Highlands. Fang Hao thought about it and decided to launch the attack. He had always adhered to the principle of, I won't offend others unless they offend me in his development. But it seemed the blood race thought he was easy to bully. They had troubled him repeatedly. Since that was the case, Fang Hao wouldn't be polite anymore and would occupy the Huanyua Highlands in one go. As for assigning Dimitar, it was because Red Duke, Clement Hamilton, was an orange-tier hero, and he feared Blood Hunter might not be able to handle him. To be safe, Dimitar would be in charge of the attack, while Blood Hunter would remain in the city. Yes, my lord. Dimitar nodded and agreed. The three of them discussed potential problems they might encounter while looking at the territory map. After chatting for a long time, they each went to attend to their own matters. After the two left, Fang Hao also walked out of the Lord's mansion and headed to the faceless man's hut. Master, the maid assigned to guard the hut greeted Fang Hao. Yes, bring out the new orders, Fang Hao said. Okay. The maid took out 2 orders. The faceless man's orders are updated every 5 days. The new orders had arrived 2 days ago, but hadn't been used yet. This time, since they were going to war with the blood race, he could first check for information. One of these should be about the troops' strength and hero situation in the Manhwa Highlands. And the second should ask if Clement Hamilton is Chester, what large buildings he has constructed, or locations where treasures are hidden, Fang Hao said. Okay. The maid agreed and began writing down the information to be inquired about on the 2 order forms. After filling them out, she opened the nearby mailbox and directly threw them in. The remaining time was for waiting for the faceless man's hut to give a price. Fang Hao used 1 order, specifically to investigate the information on Red Duke, Clement Hamilton. This was a guess he remembered obtaining a heart from the ancient tomb last time. He also saw the name Chester in related notes. Originally, Fang Hao hadn't connected Red Duke and Chester, but last night when he saw the attribute name prompted by Fielding, which was also called Twilight Reveler, his mind connected the 2 people. There was a high possibility that these 2 people were the same person. A few minutes later, there was a clink sound in the mailbox. Upon opening it, a wooden plaque with 600 written on it appeared. This meant the faceless man accepted this message. But the price was 600 war coins. It was ridiculously expensive. Fang Hao took out 600 war coins and, along with the wooden plaque, stuffed them into the mailbox. Once the war coins disappeared, the agreement between them was considered reached. All that remained was to wait for the faceless man to send back the information. Notify me when there's a message, Fang Hao said to the maid. Yes, master, the maid replied. After leaving the faceless man's hut and returning to the Lord's mansion, he saw Vanessa sitting on the stone steps at the entrance, waiting. Why are you sitting here? Fang Hao asked. Vanessa had adapted a lot. She patted her backside and stood up. I didn't dare to wander around either. It's so dangerous here. She actually thought it was more dangerous at Fang Hao's place than in the uninhabited wilderness. Come in. Fang Hao led her into the Lord's mansion. The Lord's hall was very spacious and grand, and the tall bone throne gave off a feeling of a king's throne. Vanessa's eyes scanned everywhere, her heart filled with shock and surprise. Sit down. Don't just stand there, Fang Hao said. Vanessa sat down beside him. I will arrange for someone to manage the tavern in Pearl. Get ready and go to Lysa City to open the hot pot restaurant. Fang Hao continued. Although Xiaobai managed the hot pot restaurant well, she was a beastkin. Lysis was not like Pearl City. It was a large city, quite a distance from the main city. Therefore, letting Xiaobai directly open this restaurant might cause some problems. Now that Vanessa had joined, it was perfect to have her go to Lysis first to open the shop, and then make further plans later. Is the shop large? Vanessa asked curiously. It's a bit larger than your tavern, and Lysa City has more people, giving you room to develop. Oh, what about safety on the road? Don't worry about that. I will arrange for people to protect you. Oh, that's good. Fang Hao thought for a moment. You can stay here tonight. The caravan will depart from here tomorrow, and you can pick up your people and go to Lysa City together. Oh, okay. Vanessa agreed. She didn't have much to prepare. She would just pick up her savings when they passed through Pearl City tomorrow. The rest she would leave for Fang Hao to arrange. After all, this guy was so rich. Let's go. I'll choose a room for you. Fang Hao walked out of the Lord's mansion again and built houses for Vanessa and Luali. After finishing everything and having lunch, drowsiness set in. He returned to his room and immediately fell asleep. When he woke up again, it was already evening. After dinner, Fang Hao, wearing shorts, went directly to the hot spring in the backyard and soaked comfortably. A day's fatigue instantly disappeared. The effect of the spring of rejuvenation drove away the exhaustion from his whole body. Just as he comfortably exhaled a breath, Ear walked in. Holding a fruit platter, she sat down beside Fang Hao. Master, open your mouth. Fang Hao opened his mouth, and Ear put a piece of cut fruit into his mouth. The sweetness of the fruit instantly filled his mouth. After swallowing one piece, Ear continued to pick up a second piece and fed it into Fang Hao's mouth. Master, do you want Ear to teach you how to swim? Anya isn't here today, you know. Ear leaned against Fang Hao's body, speaking affectionately close to his ear, and gently blew a breath into his ear. Fang Hao's heart fluttered. Who could resist this situation? He sat up straight, ready to have a great battle with this rabbit spirit. Just as he was about to make his next move, Anya's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Hurry, hurry. As soon as the words fell, the back door was pushed open, and Anya rushed out, leaped high, and plopped into the pool, and behind Anya, the 1.2-meter-tall Lily also rushed in. She was about to jump into the pool the same way, but then she saw Fang Hao sitting there, and her expression immediately became reserved. She bowed respectfully. She sat down carefully by the edge of the pool, as well-behaved as a child. Luali was wearing a simple binder and shorts. Her chest was slightly raised, small and round. "Luali, come down. Let's see who can swim faster." Anja called out loudly from the water. "No, no, I'll just sit for a while." Luali glanced at Fang Hao secretly and said softly, "What's the fun in sitting? Let's have a race," Anja said. Luali still shook her head, like a student who had just transferred. Fang Hao sat beside them, looking at Anja with a hint of helplessness. The reason he built 3 hot springs within his territory was to enjoy them privately, without too many people around. Now, Anja had brought her good friend over directly, and they were going to hold a swimming competition. He only hoped that Anja's friends wouldn't keep increasing. Otherwise, this place would be more crowded than the public areas. Fang Hao stood up and walked out of the hot spring. "You two have fun. Be careful. The edge of the pool is quite slippery. Don't bump or fall," Fang Hao instructed. "Where are you two going? Aren't you playing with us?" Anja said. "You guys play." Fang Hao left with ear, just after closing the door. The sound of their laughter came from behind as well as discussing the swimming competition and the rules for winning. "This is also good. It makes the city less dull," Ear said with a smile. With Anja, this lively person, around, the atmosphere in the territory also changed. It wasn't so gloomy anymore. "Yes, being young is really good," Fang Hao said softly, returning to the bedroom with Ear to rest. The next day, early morning, a slight shaking on his arm slowly woke Fang Hao from his dream. Opening his blurry eyes, he saw that Ear was already dressed and smiling at him. "Ear, you're up so early," Fang Hao said. "Master, don't you have important things to be busy with today?" Ear said, frowning and rubbing her slightly dry and sore throat. "Right. There were many arrangements for today." Sitting up in bed, Ear helped him get dressed. After washing up, he walked directly out of the Lord's manor. Outside the door, the maids had already started their work, while Winisa sat on a long bench, watching the busy maids and the various undead passing by occasionally. She even saw a maid directing tall undead to move items, and the undead were more obedient than pets, practically completely compliant. All of this made her head unable to process what was happening. What exactly was going on here? How could undead and living beings reach this state of coexistence? "Winisa, you look well," Fang Hao said softly when he saw Winisa. Calling her landlady wasn't very suitable now. Calling her by her name was more appropriate. Winisa's complexion now was much better than yesterday. Her face was rosy, and her skin was glowing, and her mental state was very good. It seemed she rested well yesterday. "Lord, it must be the effect of the hot spring. It was very comfortable," Winisa said. Last night, the maids chatted and went to the hot spring together. She also went along. When her body soaked in the hot spring, her whole body felt light, as if she was floating. The fatigue in her body instantly dissipated, and she had a good night's sleep after returning to her room. Moreover, the food for dinner here was also very good, making her start to envy the maids here. That it was simply better than the life of her. A tavern landlady, to be honest, if it weren't for the large number of undead here, she wouldn't want to leave either. Yes, hot springs can relieve fatigue and strengthen the body. You can soak in them more often when you have time, Fang Hao said with a smile. "Yes, Lord." Just then, a maid drove a carriage over. "Master, are 5 carriages enough?" The maid asked softly. "Enough. Go call some skeletons and load all the tools for opening the shop into the carriages from the warehouse," Fang Hao continued to instruct. "Yes, master." The maid pulled the carriage again and headed for the warehouse. His arrangement for Winisa to go to Lida's city wasn't just to open the shop directly. Cleaning, redecorating, and customizing the plaque all required some time. Only when all these tasks were completed would it be the official opening. "I've already bought the shop. After you go, renovate it as quickly as possible, and I'll arrange for people to go over then," Fang Hao instructed. "Okay, Lord. I've also been to Lida's city. If it's just renovating the shop, it can be completed in 3 days," Wenisa said, being very familiar with this process. Okay, then once you're ready, you can set off. Don't worry about things on the road. I've already arranged for people to meet you along the way, Fang Hao said. Oh, okay, Lord. Before long, the carriages loaded with goods returned. All right, set off as soon as possible. And be extra careful on the road, Fang Hao instructed. Wenisa nodded and got directly into the carriage. The maid would take Wenisa to the southern fortress, and then the greatsword guards would escort her to Lita's city. After Wenisa left, Fang Hao returned to his room. He also needed to notify Grizzly Bear and have her arrange people to meet Wenisa. Wenisa's caravan was different from Fang Hao's, because they were carrying a large amount of goods. They needed to rest for one night along the way, and Grizzly Bear's stronghold became the midway transit point and place to rest for the night. Camping in the wilderness was still too dangerous, besides wandering bandits. Nighttime was also when wild beasts were active. Lying on the bed, he cast divine presence that a tower of the undead servant had been built at Grizzly Bear's camp, so his divine presence could easily be cast there. The next second, Fang Hao's divine consciousness descended upon the skeleton gray sparrow he had left for Grizzly Bear. A faint blue flame had just risen in Gray Sparrow's eye sockets. This was a bedroom. The bedroom was simply decorated, but also very cleaned up. It didn't look like a room where a bandit leader would live. That be why the window in the room. Grizzly Bear supported herself with her hands on the ground, her naked body tense, outlining a muscular physique, rising and falling repeatedly, counting in her mouth. 1274, 1275, 1276. Sweat dripped down her tan skin. With each descent, the weight on her chest hit the ground, being squeezed and deformed. Fang Hao hadn't expected Grizzly Bear to put the skeleton gray sparrow directly on the bedside table. Was she treating it like a pet bird? Grizzly Bear, Fang Hao called out softly. Grizzly Bear, who was concentrating on push-ups, frowned and glanced towards the door. Finding no movement, she continued her exercise. Cough, cough. Fang Hao coughed twice, turned Gray Sparrow's body to the side, and spoke again. Grizzly Bear, I have something to tell you. This time, Grizzly Bear heard clearly. She rolled over and immediately grabbed the large saber beside her, gripping it tightly. Who is it? It's Fang Hao. I'm talking to you through the skeleton Gray Sparrow right now. Don't be nervous, Fang Hao immediately said. Grizzly Bear frowned and looked at the Gray Sparrow on the bedside table. She was a bit confused as to why Fang Hao's voice suddenly came from this silly, undead Gray Sparrow. But Gray Sparrow was left to her by Fang Hao, so it should be some kind of undead spell. She casually wrapped a sheet around herself and said, Lord Fang Hao, what is it? A caravan has already set off from Pearl City. Arrange for someone to meet them. The person in charge is named Wenisa. Don't get it wrong. Fang Hao turned back and said. And then, Grizzly Bear continued to ask. They will rest at your place for one night, and the next day escort them to Lita's city. Okay, I understand. All right. After Fang Hao finished speaking, the pain soul fire in the skeleton Gray Sparrow extinguished. Gray Sparrow returned to its original appearance. Standing blankly on the bedside table, Grizzly Bear's eyes narrowed slightly, confirming if Fang Hao had left. After thinking for a moment, she casually put the skeleton Gray Sparrow into a box. Feeling it wasn't quite right, she took it out again and put it back in its original position. Releasing God's descent, Fang Hao woke up from the bed. He reconsidered Wenyesa's route, and after feeling that nothing was missed, he got out of bed and walked out of the room. You had already prepared breakfast, and Fang Hao had a good meal. After breakfast, Fang Hao suddenly thought about the textile factory and the nightshade textile machine. The textile factory can increase the attributes of weaving, and the nightshade textile machine also seems to produce high-quality silk. The sooner it is put into production, the sooner he can make money. Walking out of the Lord's mansion, he went directly to the tailor shop area. Sawyer saw Fang Hao coming and took the initiative to greet him. Good morning, Lord. I didn't see you exercising today. Usually, Fang Hao would pass by Sawyer's place when he exercised in the morning. I had some things to do today, so I didn't exercise, Fang Hao said. It seems that the Lord has been quite busy recently. Well, I got a blueprint for a textile factory yesterday, so I'm here to change everyone's workplace, Fang Hao said as he walked. The place where the tailors worked was a simple factory building built by the labor skeletons. Or rather, It was more appropriate to call it a large shed. And the construction was very simple. After all, Fang Hao didn't know much about construction. And the labor skeleton's level of building houses was just SOSO. Sawyer followed behind him. It's better to have a factory building. Better conditions can speed up the production of clothing. Well, the factory building will be built next to it. And I will arrange for people to demolish the original factory building. Okay, Lord. 10 meters to the left of the old factory building. Fang Hao opened the Lord's book and found the construction blueprint for textile factory. Textile factory with 2200. Stone 4500. Tough with 1200. Stone bricks 880. Iron 200. Metal parts 120. Description: building a standardized factory is conducive to the processing and manufacturing of textile raw materials. The materials were sufficient, so he directly chose to build it. The light dissipated. A spacious stone factory building appeared in front of him, compared to the previous shed supported by wooden pillars. This factory building was much more professional. The stone walls were very strong, and the tall shed roof and sunlight windows shone in, making the interior bright. Sawyer, arrange for everyone to change places. Okay, Lord. Sawyer began to call everyone to change workplaces, moving the looms and various materials to the new factory building. The new factory building was very large. 100 skeleton tailors went in, plus the piled-up materials on the side, and only occupied 1/3 of the place. Fang Hao continued to find Nightshade textile machine in the Lord's book. Nightshade silk loom. Tough wood 5. Thick tough leather 2. Iron 2. Cast iron block 1. Metal parts 5. Enchanting essence 1. Description: through the loom, corresponding high-quality fabrics can be produced. Production quantity 1. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Obtain Nightshade silk looms 101. Swish, swish, swish. The light flashed, and silk looms appeared in front of everyone. Lord, what is this? Sawyer asked curiously. This is a loom for Nightshade silk. You arrange for people to process it and see how the quality of Nightshade silk is, so as to prepare for opening a store in Lizzie's, Fang Hao said. Understood, Lord. By the way, Sawyer, do you think we should increase the number of people? Fang Hao continued to ask. The material supply could be guaranteed, and the number of looms exceeded the number of tailors now. It was also possible to appropriately increase the number of people. Yes, Lord. Okay. Fang Hao went directly to the tailor shop to recruit people. Recruitable. Skeleton tailor. Consumption. Wriggling spine 1. Recruit. Confirm recruitment. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited skeleton tailors. 101. 101 skeleton tailors wearing linen robes and carrying leather soft rulers around their necks appeared in front of him as lights flickered, collectively saluting. Greetings, Lord. Okay, welcome everyone to join. Fang Hao continued to introduce Sawyer. This is Sawyer. Your work will be arranged by him in the future. Greetings, Lord Sawyer. The newly recruited tailors saluted Sawyer again. Undead tailor Sawyer's loyalty to you increased by 5 points. Current loyalty 92. Sawyer's loyalty increased again. It seemed that whether it was living beings or undead, they all liked the feeling of being an official. Okay, everyone come with me. I'll assign you some work, Sawyer said. After saluting Fang Hao, he led a group of newly recruited tailors towards the factory building. After dealing with the tailors, Fang Hao continued to check the blueprints he had obtained yesterday, those that were helpful to him. Military spear, military round shield, and commander fortress command chair. The military spear could be equipped for the spear holders, but the military round shield needed to be carefully compared. He also had a blue shield blueprint in his hand, beast head heavy shield, which was obtained when he occupied the Cold Wind Mountains. He also had to compare what the differences were between these two shields, and which one was more suitable for equipping the army. The Commander Fortress Command Chair could be made. Commander Fortress Command Chair. Tough wood 12. Thick tough leather 5. Perfect essence 1. Production quantity 1. Production. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Obtained Commander Fortress Command Chairs 101. Wooden command chairs appeared, placed in the surrounding open space. Go and call Blood Hunter, Fang Hao said to the maid beside him. Not long after, Blood Hunter fell from the sky. Lord. Well, please make a trip and send these command chairs to the fortresses, Fang Hao said. Understood, Lord. Blood Hunter agreed and called the bone dragon to start preparing. Blood Hunter left riding the bone dragon. Fang Hao was just about to study the military round shield. The maid's shout came from behind him. Master. Looking back, he saw a maid running over in a hurry. Fang Hao was familiar with this maid. She was the maid in charge of guarding the Faceless One's hut. Could it be that news had come back from the Faceless One's hut? But he had just raised the question yesterday, and intelligence came out today? Last time, when he filled out the information about the Skull Crusher tribe and the Bloodthroat tribe, it seemed that it took 3 days for the news to come back. What's wrong? Fang Hao asked. News has come back from the Faceless One's hut. Sure enough. News came back from the Faceless One's hut. Okay, go to the hut and take a look. After speaking, he walked towards the Faceless One's hut. Inside the Faceless One's hut, the maid handed the transmitted message to Fang Hao. There were 2 in total. The first one wrote, Bright Moon Highlands Troop Strength, 50,000. Hero Red Duke, Clement Hamilton. Orange rank 8 5 years ago. The second one wrote, Clement was called Chester when he was still human. A temple map has been built southwest of Pearl City. At the back of the second message, a map was also thoughtfully attached. The news from the Faceless One's lodge corresponded to the 2 questions raised by Fang Hao. The first was the strength of the army in the Radiant Moon Highlands. They possessed 50,000 troops. Although the number might not be accurate, the difference wouldn't be too significant in Fang Hao's eyes. This number of troops was insignificant. The troops Fang Hao stationed in each fortress were all above 1 million. The difference in numbers between them already predetermined the other side's defeat. What was truly concerning was Duke Red Clement. As the leader of the Blood Clan in the Radiant Moon Highlands, he already possessed Orange rank 8 strength 5 years ago. Fang Hao was somewhat worried whether he had broken through to a higher rank now, or even reached the Dark Gold level of a hero. If he reached the Dark Gold level, then he would be somewhat difficult to deal with. The second piece of news verified Fang Hao's guess. Duke Red and Chester mentioned in the notes were indeed the same person. Clement was the name he changed to after becoming a Blood Clan member. The intelligence also mentioned that a temple was built in the southwest direction of Pearl City, and a map was attached. Using the Lord's book to record the map, the location of the temple immediately appeared on the large map. It was indeed southwest of Pearl City, but the location was somewhat remote. All right, the Faceless One's lodge won't have anything for the next few days. You can rest for a few days, Fang Hao said to the maid. After an order is used, it will only be updated after a few days, so there's no use in her watching it. Thank you, master. All right, go find Dimika and ask him to wait for me at the Lord's mansion. Yes, master. The maid agreed and went to find Dimika. Leaving the Faceless One's lodge, Fang Hao went to the Trade Alliance on the way to take a look. When he returned to the Lord's mansion, Dimika was already waiting in the Lord's hall. Lord, is there news about the Blood Clan? Dimika said, standing up. Fang Hao nodded and handed the intelligence letter sent by the Faceless One's lodge to Dimika. The latter took it in his hand and carefully examined it. Lord, I am willing to lead troops to the Radiant Moon Highlands, Dimika said. Standing up, the letter stated that the enemy's strength was only 50,000. This number was incomparable to the strength within the territory. Okay, whatever you need, I will prepare for you then, Fang Hao said. He called Dimika over because he had already planned the attack. Even if Duke Red's strength was still uncertain, he had never relied on individual strength to win. The human wave tactic was his core strategy, whether the opponent's individual strength was strong or had enough brains and strategies. I just have more people here, and I will use the number of people to kill you. Dimika thought for a moment and told Fang Hao what he needed to prepare. Okay, I will prepare it properly for you then. Fang Hao thought for a while and continued. The second piece of intelligence mentioned a temple. I suspect it is related to that heart. Arrange some people. Let's go to the temple to take a look later. Dimika couldn't leave today, so they might as well explore the temple first. With Dimika here, the strength would still be greatly improved. Yes, Lord. Dimika agreed and retreated. Half an hour later, 10 bone dragons, fully loaded with Gravekeeper guardians, were waiting at the gate of the Lord's mansion. Fang Hao took on Jia, Luo Li, and Dimika, and the 3 boarded the bone dragon. Let's go, Fang Hao said. The bone dragon received the order used force under its feet, and the whole person rushed into the sky. Flying towards the direction of the temple, I still remember that I got the clue of City Lord and the tomb dweller in the tavern at that time. The landlady vividly told a touching love story. Originally, I thought that this City Lord built a mausoleum in the mountains for his lover. Who would have thought that through the description of the item and the records in the diary, the direction of the story is exactly the opposite. This City Lord, who is now Duke Red, after gaining the trust of his blood clan lover, he killed her in a special way and used his lover's blood to turn himself and the people of the city into blood clans, and dismembered her and buried her in different locations. And when he explored this ancient tomb, he received a task while obtaining the beating heart, helping the owner of the heart find the rest of the body. Will have a chance to gain the allegiance of a dark gold level hero. This is also why Fang Hao used a single order to ask what kind of engineering construction Duke Red had, which is likely to be the follow-up task of the heart. The bone dragon flew in the sky, quickly approaching the location of the temple. The whistling wind was in my ears, and through the clouds below, I could see the matchbox-sized human villages, and the villagers busy like ants. After flying for more than an hour, they had already approached the target location. Diving down, they saw the abandoned temple in front. The location of the temple is very obvious. Within a range of 100 meters centered on the temple, no weeds grow, and the land is as dry and loose as if it has lost its nutrients. And outside 100 meters, the dense forest grows very lush. This strong sense of difference is especially obvious in the sky. Damn, this temple isn't poisonous, is it? Fang Hao muttered. Seeing the bone dragon approaching quickly, he hurriedly patted the bone dragon, asking it to change direction and land in the dense forest 100 meters away. First point 10 bone dragons landed, and Fang Hao took a few people and jumped down. Looking at the temple in front from a distance, the temple is made of stone bricks, and its shape is somewhat similar to the architectural style of ancient Rome. Looking inside from the doorway, you can see the idols enshrined inside. There's someone over there, Anjia suddenly said. Following the direction Anjia pointed, he saw a middle-aged man dressed as a villager carrying a wild boar behind the temple. He should be a hunter from a nearby village. He directly passed through the empty area in the middle of the temple, and the poisoning that Fang Hao had imagined did not happen. Anjia, you come with me. Fang Hao took Anjia and walked out of the dense forest, chasing after the villager. Brother, Fang Hao shouted. The hunter looked back suspiciously, put down the wild boar warily, and drew the dagger from his waist. Are you calling me? The hunter asked, frowning. Yes. Fang Hao glanced at the hunter's movements, didn't approach, and asked directly. Brother, I want to ask, what kind of god is worshipped in this temple? Is it effective? Which village are you from? I haven't seen you before. The hunter asked. Oh, I'm from Pearl City. Pearl City. The hunter exclaimed that it's not close to Pearl City here, that if a normal person walks, it would take a day and a night to get here. Yeah, I'm here to see if the temple is effective. The hunter saw that the two were young and didn't look like they were lying. So he put away the dagger in his hand and said, running so far to find a temple. It seems that something happened at home. Damn, this hunter sure knows how to talk. No wonder when I called him just now. He immediately reached for the dagger at his waist. He probably offended quite a few people with that mouth of his. No, I was just passing by, just interested in this temple, Fang Hao quickly explained. Given that nothing grows around the temple, it wasn't strange for Fang Hao to say he was interested. The hunter didn't ask further and continued. As you can see, there's something wrong with this temple. It's fine to go in and look around, but forget about making wishes or anything like that. Why doesn't even a single blade of grass grow near the temple? Fang Hao continued to ask. Nothing grows. It's been like this for years. People just got used to it over time. The hunter continued. Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, that's so strange. It's not dangerous, is it? There's no danger. There are several villages nearby, and people occasionally go in to rest for a bit. Oh, Fang Hao frowned again that if villagers occasionally go in to rest, there shouldn't be any danger. Anything else? The hunter asked again. Oh no, that's all. Thanks, big brother. The hunter grunted in response, hoisted the wild boar back onto his shoulder, and turned to leave. Fang Hao and Njia returned to the team in the dense forest. "My lord, how was it?" Demite Gadja asked. "The hunter said there's no danger. Let's wait a bit. I'll use a skeleton sparrow to take a look." Fang Hao leaned against a giant tree and cast divine descent that a skeleton sparrow in his hand had soul fire ignite in its eyes and flapped its wings. Flying towards the temple, the skeleton sparrow successfully flew through the temple's arched stone gate. The area inside the temple wasn't large. The patterns on the surrounding stone walls were already blurred, and it was difficult to discern what was carved. In the center was a stone statue over 3 meters tall. Half of the statue's head had fallen off, and its body was covered in cracks. The statue did not display any attribute information. This also indicated that what was before him was just an ordinary stone carving, not a blessed divine statue. After checking around, he indeed found no danger. Fang Hao controlled the sparrow to fly back again and lifted the divine descent. Opening his eyes, he saw several people looking at him curiously. Didn't find any danger. "Let's have a skeleton approach and take a look first," Fang Hao said, standing up from the ground. "All right," Demite Gadget said, pointed to a tomb guardian, and had him enter the temple. He walked around inside, and then came back out of the temple. Nothing happened at all. "It seems there's no danger," and Jia said from the side. "Let's get closer and take a look." After confirming there was no danger, the group led the main force and began to approach. They entered the temple without encountering any danger or unexpected situations along the way. Fang Hao also let out a sigh of relief. It seemed he had been overthinking. "All right, search around and see if there's anything special," Fang Hao said. The temple wasn't large. After confirming there was no danger, the skeleton soldiers were moved outside. Only Fang Hao and the other 3 began searching inside the temple. They looked around everywhere, searching for anything unusual. The few of them searched for a while, but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Fang Hao stroked his chin, deep in thought. This temple was built by the Red Duke, a person who dismembered his lover and turned the entire city into vampires. How could such a person genuinely build a temple? Moreover, nothing grows within 100 meters around the temple. Everything about it seemed strange. They shouldn't have found nothing at all. "Let's go, step outside," Fang Hao said, leading the few of them out. Then he said to the tomb guardians nearby, "Tear this temple down for me." At his words, the others were all stunned. "Are you crazy? Aren't you afraid of offending the gods by tearing down a temple?" Luo Li exclaimed in surprise, hearing that he wanted to tear down the temple. All her first stood on end again. Luo Li's reaction made Fang Hao feel as if he had instantly grasped something. It also made him even more resolute in his heart. "Tear it down." The tomb guardians surrounding them had no psychological burden whatsoever. Upon receiving Fang Hao's command, they swung their weapons and began a violent demolition. After a series of loud bangs and scattered soil and rocks, the already small temple quickly had its roof and walls torn down. The divine statue, already covered in cracks, was also pushed over. Its broken body was thrown onto an empty space nearby, and as the divine statue fell, a dark entrance was revealed beneath its base. Just as expected, the divine statue was the Red Duke's deception. Knowing the fear people of this era had towards gods, no one would dare to destroy a temple. The others' thoughts were similar. No one dared to destroy the statue. There really is something. And Jia's eyes widened. The Red Duke capitalized on the fact that people wouldn't dare touch the temple. He really does have some cleverness, Fang Hao sneered. "What should we do next?" And Jia continued to ask. "I'll use the skeleton sparrow to take another look." Fang Hao sat down again nearby. The same skeleton sparrow flew off once more, entering through the void where the statue's base had been. Sunlight streamed in through the opening, so it wasn't too dark that it was just a very large space. The walls were made of earthy yellow stone slabs. Besides being carved with complex patterns, the slabs were also inlaid with many sun essences. A stone staircase appeared on one side of the space. Leading downwards, the sparrow continued to approach, flying down along the entrance to the stone staircase. The second level was still a huge space, also with yellow stone slab walls, intricate patterns, and sun essences. Only on both sides of the stone walls were several stone coffins placed, given the habits of the blood race. The enemies on this level should be inside these stone coffins, and behind the stone coffins. There was another entrance leading to the next level. It seemed this place wasn't just 2 levels deep. Fang Hao didn't control the sparrow to get closer, but flew back the way it came. He lifted the divine descent state and woke up, seeing the expectant looks from the others. Fang Hao explained. This place below is like a downward-facing tower structure. Stone coffins were found on the 2nd level. Given the characteristics of the blood race, the enemies this time should be inside. What about next? And Jia continued to press. Let's go. Arrange some people to go down. Be careful, Fang Hao said. All right. The few of them made a simple division of labor. The internal space was limited, and Fang Hao's combat strength would be difficult to play a decisive role. Therefore, Fang Hao and Jia would stay outside. Dimite Gaja and Luo Li would lead 10 Tomb Guardians inside. If there was danger, they could retreat quickly. They could also mobilize other Tomb Guardians to go in and provide support. A rope ladder was lowered down the opening. Dimite Gaja led the team into the opening. Fang Hao controlled the sparrow, which landed on the shoulder of a Tomb Guardian accompanying them. It's so hot in here, Luo Li said, sweat beads already appearing on the tip of her nose. Using the skeleton sparrow, Fang Hao couldn't feel the surrounding temperature, but seeing Luo Li's state, he could imagine the high temperature around them. The sun essences around are providing a lot of heat, Dimite Gadger explained. Looking at the entrance leading to the next level. Let's go down. The team began walking down the stone stairs step by step. Just as they were about to reach the 2nd underground level, Luo Li suddenly said, "Don't go any further. There's a mechanism." But her words were still a step too late. The Tomb Guardian at the very front stepped onto the last stone stair. Click. The stone stair sank. The stone slab on the wall beside them opened, revealing dense black arrow holes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Arrows, thick as javelins, whistled out, shooting towards the group. Bang, bang, bang. Arrows shot out from the arrow slits in the wall, accompanied by whistling sounds. The 6 waist tomb guards walking at the front couldn't dodge in time and were instantly struck by the arrows, their bodies flying out like kites with snapped strings. They were pinned to the opposite wall. One of the waist tomb guards had his skull shattered. 3 had their neck and spinal bones crushed, resulting in immediate death and scattered bones. The other 2 waist tomb guards had their metal plate armor pierced by the arrows. Their chest and shoulder bones were hit respectively. Although not dead, their combat effectiveness was reduced. They had only brought 10 soldiers in total. This single trap had directly taken out half of their forces. Through the Sparrowhawk's perspective, Fang Hao watched everything unfold before him. When he used the Sparrowhawk to scout, it was in flight and didn't trigger any traps at all. Only now did he realize that traps existed here. Thump, thump, thump. Without giving the group much time to think, from the stone coffins at the end came sounds of intense pounding. Bang. Following that, amidst a series of loud noises, the sealed coffin lids were forcefully pushed open, and 5 figures quickly sat up from within the coffins to this moment. Fang Hao also saw the information of the enemies in the stone coffins. Life-claiming walker, Tier 8. The walkers who sat up from the coffins stiffly turned their bodies. Their entire bodies were highly decomposed. In the parts where flesh was lost, even pale white skeletons were exposed. These were more like the zombies Fang Hao had seen. Perhaps they were high-level zombies. The walkers wore tattered battle armor, their heads turning mechanically and stiffly, fixing their gaze on Fang Hao and his group. Then, they each took out a long sword from their respective coffins and slowly walked out of their stone coffins. Are there any more traps below? Dimitega asked again. Yes, there should be a trap in the middle. Luali pointed to a stone slab in the center of the hall that if one were to bend down and look closely, they would find that this stone slab was about 5 millimeters higher than the ground. Click. As soon as Luali finished speaking, the life-claiming walker who had just gotten up dragged its feet and stumbled, stepping onto the raised stone slab. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 more arrows as thick as javelins shot out from one side. They pierced through 2 approaching walkers, pinning them to the wall in the distance. There aren't any now, Luali said. Dimitega nodded and immediately ordered, "Go kill them." The waist tomb guards received the command, raised the long swords in their hands, and charged directly towards the remaining 3 life-claiming walkers below. 2. Completely different types of undead engaged in fierce combat. The battle did not last too long. The 3 walkers were cut down, and the other 2 walkers who triggered the mechanism and were pinned to the wall were also finished off by the passing waste tomb guards. All enemies were eliminated, and the entire area instantly became quiet, at the end of the passage leading to the next level. The waste tomb guards brought over a silver treasure chest, but Fang Hao was currently just a skeleton sparrow hawk, making it somewhat difficult for him to open the treasure chest, carry the treasure chest upstairs, and replenish the manpower. Fang Hao flapped his wings and said, there was no rush to open the treasure chest. It was just a silver treasure chest, and there wasn't much excitement about it. It was fine to open it later after everything was finished. 2 waste tomb guards carried the silver treasure chest outside at the same time. The troop strength was replenished back to 15 that after everything was handled. Dimitega continued to give orders to proceed to the 3rd level of the crypt. Wait! Fang Hao suddenly spoke up, stopping the advancing team. Flapping his wings, he landed directly on Luoli's shoulder and asked, Luoli, are you very knowledgeable about traps? He suddenly remembered that among Luoli's skills, there seemed to be skills specifically for dealing with traps. It's all right, Luoli said. Go ahead and check the next level for traps first. Be careful, and if you're unsure, come back. Fang Hao instructed. Luoli's combat ability was averaged. He brought her along this time also because she had reached Tier 9. Fang Hao wanted her to participate in some battles to quickly reach Tier 10 and undergo the hero trial. Unexpectedly, Luoli discovered the traps even before Dimitega. Okay, leave it to me, Luoli readily agreed, full of confidence. Be careful. Don't take risks if you're unsure, Fang Hao reminded from behind. Don't worry. Luoli was the first to descend to the 3rd level. About 3 minutes later, Luoli returned. All right, I've placed a helmet in front of all the mechanisms. Be careful when you go down. Walking down the stone steps, they found 4 metal helmets placed on the ground of the 3rd level, indicating that behind the helmets were the mechanisms. These helmets were worn by the life-claiming walkers earlier and collected by Luoli to be used here. The hall on the 3rd level was noticeably smaller. There were 3 stone coffins ahead. One of the iron helmets was placed not far from a stone coffin. Fang Hao looked at Luoli with some surprise. This little girl is capable, not simple, based on his previous experience in the ancient tomb. Approaching the coffins would alert the enemies inside. Luoli had been busy down there for a long time and actually managed to hide from the enemies in the stone coffins. She really had some skills. Let's begin, Fang Hao said in a low voice. Dimitega nodded and led the waste tomb guards around the mechanisms on the ground. Approaching the stone coffins, thump, thump, thump. Upon reaching a certain distance, the stone coffins emitted dull pounding sounds. The coffin lids flew open, and 3 figures suddenly sat up. Dusk Reveler, Tier 10. They appeared. As expected, they were revenant revelers. This was more in line with the characteristics of the blood race. Otherwise, Fang Hao always felt like he had come to the wrong place. The Dusk Revelers sat up from the coffins, their crimson eyes opening, looking towards Fang Hao and his group with full of anger. But in the next second, the Dusk Revelers let out painful roars. Their bodies began to shrivel at a speed visible to the naked eye, their skin contracting and their lips starting to expose sharp teeth. Their entire bodies looked like mummies that had undergone dehydration. Their appearance extremely horrifying. What's happening? Luoli wiped the sweat from her forehead. The temperature here was really too high. It was like a steamer, dry and stuffy. It should be related to the array patterns embedded with sun essence on the walls, Fang Hao said. The array patterns on the wall were similar to the ones in the ancient tomb that illuminated the beating heart. It should be due to the array patterns. The Dusk Revelers, looking like mummies, slowly walked out of the stone coffins, picked up the weapons beside them, and let out hoarse roars again. Go, kill them, Dimitega also directly ordered. The 15 waste tomb guards received the command, descended the steps, and charged towards the blood race ahead. The battle began. The waste tomb guards and the blood race clashed. Even though the waste tomb guards had the advantage in numbers, the difference in tier was still too great. Even with several people surrounding one, it was difficult to see results. No one wanted to prolong the battle. So Dimitega took off his long sword and also descended the steps. Directly in front was a tall male blood race. Although his appearance was somewhat frightening at the moment, his embroidered black suit still showed his status as a high-ranking noble. His weapon was a cane sword, and the sharp blade pierced through the skull of the waist tomb guard in front of him. The waist tomb guard died, its bones and equipment scattered on the ground. Next, his gaze fell on the lizard man slowly walking towards him, and the little beast man who was only 1.2 meters tall behind him. The craving for blood made him instinctively stick out his tongue, licking his already distorted lower lip. Cough, I haven't tasted the flavor of lizard man and beast man, the blood race said, the tearing sensation in his voice making one feel nauseous. Facing the vampire man's loud roar, Dimitka did not speak, but raised his sword and continued to walk towards the vampire. The distance between them shortened. The vampire man could no longer suppress his thirst for blood. His slow walk gradually turned into a run. A bloodthirsty and eerie smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, anticipating the coming feast. He did not put the lizard man walking towards him in his eyes either. He held a cane sword, known for its speed and versatility, while the lizard man was tall but held a heavy greatsword. In this terrain, he held a complete advantage. Long-awaited fresh blood. It was truly something to look forward to. The vampire quickly sprinted closer, and when the distance between them was only 3 meters, he instantly stopped. Whoosh! The cane sword in his hand, at a tricky angle, stabbed upwards from below towards the lizardman's lower jaw. That was the connection between the armor and the helmet. A direct hit there would pierce through his lower jaw to the back of his head, killing him. The tip of the sword got closer and closer to the lizardman's lower jaw. In the man's mind, he could already see blood splattering from the wound, sweet fresh blood, flowing into his mouth. Suddenly, he felt resistance as he thrust the sword. He frowned and looked, a look of terror suddenly appearing on his face. He saw the lizard man casually grab the blade he had thrust out. The blade of the cane sword made a sha-sha friction sound against the armor on the lizardman's fingertips, and was finally held tight. And no matter how hard he tried, he could not pull the cane sword out. The vampire man's expression became increasingly horrified. Evernight had bestowed upon him great power. He was a 10th tier unit, so why was his attack as weak and powerless as a woman's light punch in front of this lizard man? Is that all you've got? The lizard man said. The vampire wanted to say something, but the lizardman's other hand, with a single hand, swung the greatsword. Poof! The greatsword cut off his head, blood splattered, and a puff of smoke rose in the high temperature. The vampire's head rolled. He saw his body slowly falling to the ground, and the orc and a small skeleton bird standing on the stone steps. Who exactly were these people? Why were an orc, a lizard man, and an undead together? He thought, before his vision finally turned to cheap darkness, having killed one person. Dimitka did not stop for a moment. He continued to hold his greatsword and rushed towards the next vampire. With a swing of his sword, he killed the remaining 2 twilight revelers. The battle ended quickly, but Fang Hao's side also lost 10 tomb guards. Several of them died at the hands of the vampires, and several others were killed by traps when they accidentally triggered mechanisms on the ground during the battle. All in all, the battle was over, and Fang Hao's side had won at the end of the corridor. A golden treasure chest was moved over. It was still ordered to be sent up. After reorganizing the troops, before heading down to the 4th floor, Luali was sent ahead to check for traps and mark them. Luali went down to the 4th floor, but she came back less than 2 minutes later. She said, "Below is the last floor. There are no traps, no enemies, and in the middle is an open, oversized stone coffin." The last floor? Is there anything in that stone coffin? Fang Hao asked. I only saw that the stone coffin had no lid. I didn't dare get too close, Lolly said. That made sense. If there was an enemy inside, getting too close might wake them up. Let's go. Let's go down and take a look. Fang Hao flapped his wings and landed back on a tomb guard's shoulder. The team began to enter the 4th floor along the stone steps. The area of the 4th floor was smaller again, and there was no passage leading to the next floor, not if there were no secret passages. Then this was the last floor of the underground palace. In the center was a huge stone coffin. Rather than a stone coffin, It looked more like a pool shaped like a stone coffin. On top of the stone coffin were 4 circular bronze mirrors. Around each bronze mirror, sunray patterns were carved, inlaid with sun essence, casting 4 beams of light into the stone coffin directly below. These bronze mirrors and patterns were exactly the same as those that illuminated the heart in the ancient tomb last time. Fang Hao was basically certain now what was in the stone coffin was the remaining body of the heart. It's just looking at the stone coffin the size of a swimming pool in front of him. How huge must the person inside be? Could vampires also be giant-sized? That shouldn't be the case if they were giants. Then how did they become lovers with the human city lord before? Their body structure didn't match either. Fang Hao was a little confused. Go take a stroll inside, Fang Hao said to a tomb guard beside him. The tomb guard did not hesitate. Upon hearing the command, he immediately walked down the steps and circled the entire hall. There were no sudden situations, and no enemies appeared. It was certain there was no danger inside. Be careful, everyone. Transport the burial items inside out, Fang Hao ordered. Although the stone coffin occupied most of the space, there were still many gold and silver burial items stored in the corners. The tomb guards who were on standby began to move. They started carrying out the burial items that could be taken away. Fang Hao controlled the skeleton gray sparrow, flying directly above the giant coffin in the center. Landing on the top of the coffin wall and looking down. In the stone coffin was a pair of huge bat wings. This, under the illumination of the bronze mirror beams. They were pale and shriveled. Reviving bat wings category. Organ effect. Transplant bat wings. Description. The greedy city lord peeled the bat wings from his lover's body. He found the best surgeon in the city and tried to transplant them onto himself. The 324th attempt failed. The city lord let out an angry and painful roar in the moonlight and permanently buried the bat wings. Quest. Search for a complete body. Completion 23. Description. Searching for a complete body has a chance to obtain an epic grade hero joining. The attribute information appeared before Fang Hao. It seemed that what was buried here was not the body of this vampire, but the bat wings. The effect was actually transplanting bat wings. In other words, if he wanted to, he could also transplant the bat wings onto himself. This point was very similar to the Red Duke mentioned in the description, but the Red Duke ultimately failed. After the 324th failure, he sealed the bat wings here. Of course, even though Fang Hao felt that having a pair of huge bat wings would be cool, he would not transplant such a thing. He had a bone dragon for transportation. Why take the risk of getting these strange and quirky things? And the quest search for a complete body was already 2/3 complete. As long as he found the final body, he could complete the quest at that time. There would be a chance for an epic grade hero to join his territory. Take down the bronze mirrors and sun essence from above. Fang Hao continued to order. The tomb guards stood in a stack under the bronze mirrors, taking down all the items from the top. The beams of light from the bronze mirrors disappeared. The bat wings in the stone coffin also began to slowly regain blood color, no longer so shriveled. As the bronze mirror on the ceiling was removed, the bat wings in the stone coffin rapidly regained their color. They were no longer shriveled and pale. What is this? Lori jumped onto the stone coffin, and Dimija also walked over. They were later additions, and Fang Hao had only briefly explained the beating heart situation on the way. Bat wings. Part of the beating heart, Fang Hao replied. That's really scary, Lori said, hugging her shoulders and shivering. The 2 bat wings gradually regained color. They flapped occasionally, as if about to fly. You'll get used to it, Fang Hao comforted. All the burial objects had been transported out. Tie up the bat wings and take them out. Also take all the sun essence and luminous stones from the surrounding walls. Fang Hao continued. The tomb guards resumed their actions. They began to pry off the sun essence and luminous stones from the walls. Then they entered the stone coffin and tied up the flapping bat wings with ropes, in case they actually flew out after leaving, which would require him to arrange for people to chase them. With the 4th level completely dealt with, everyone returned to the 3rd level to scavenge for items. Outside the underground palace, under the shade of the large tree, Fang Hao was still in the divine presence state. He lay on the grass with his eyes closed. Behind him in the dense forest were the bone dragon and the remaining tomb guards waiting in place this time. Fang Hao's upper garment was pulled high, revealing his smooth, fair belly. Meanwhile, Jia was lying beside him, propping her chin with her hands, looking on with great interest. Come on, you're almost at the finish line. Don't be discouraged, little green. There's still a chance to overtake. Amidst Jia's cheering, one green and one white, two caterpillars were engaged in a fierce crawling race on Fang Hao's belly. The white caterpillar was in the lead, gradually approaching the finish line, and the lagging green caterpillar, after being poked in the backside a couple of times with a twig, also surged forward, seemingly about to catch up to the white caterpillar. The race had entered its final stage. The white caterpillar had been leading, and the green caterpillar was close behind. Who would ultimately win? Just as the two caterpillars were side by side, neck and neck, and seemingly about to reach the finish line at the entrance to the underground palace, the tomb guards emerged with various items, and Fang Hao, lying on the ground, his eyelids also twitched slightly. Jia was startled and quickly grabbed the two caterpillars, casually flinging them away. Fang Hao opened his eyes and felt his belly was a bit cold. Looking down, he saw that his leather armor had been unbuckled and the clothes underneath were pulled high. There were also two damp marks on his belly. What's going on? Fang Hao asked curiously. What's going on? And Jia immediately sat up, looking as if she had no idea what he was talking about. Why did you lift my clothes? Fang Hao also sat up and checked his pants again. Oh, it was too hot, and I saw you were sweating. I was afraid you'd get heat stroke, and Jia explained. Fang Hao rolled his eyes at her. Only a fool would believe that he buttoned up his clothes. All right, the underground palace business is finished. When Dimitra and the others come out, you arrange for people to block the entrance, so that no passing villagers fall in someday. Oh, okay. Soon, Dimitra and everyone else came out. Various spoils and burial objects were piled up on either side, and Jia directed the tomb guards to start preparing stones, ready to block the entrance once everyone was out. Fang Hao also took this opportunity to open the treasure chests. This time, he obtained 2 treasure chests, 1 silver treasure chest, and 1 gold treasure chest. First, he went to the silver treasure chest and opened it. Obtained white steel greatsword blueprint, courtyard stone wall blueprint, shadow stone 5, bloodstone 12, war coin 72. The white steel greatsword blueprint was a duplicate. The last time he obtained it was in the vampire's ancient tomb, and this time he got it again from opening the silver treasure chest. He checked the second blueprint. Courtyard stone wall blueprint, per linear meter wood 10, stone 30, stone brick 20. Description: a wall that guards against gentlemen but not against villains, though it can block the line of sight. The wall could be used to enclose the backyard of the Lord's mansion. Although there weren't many people in the territory, the open-air hot spring was still a bit awkward. Shadow stone and bloodstone needed no introduction. That he also didn't expect to get rare materials from 2 factions when opening the treasure chest. He recorded the blueprints, put the materials into his storage space, and continued to the gold treasure chest. He opened it. Obtained fine stone slab blueprint, exquisite sun array pattern stone slab blueprint, heavy black iron bolt blueprint, noble cane sword blueprint, bloodstone 45, war coin 258. The gold treasure chest yielded quite a few items. A scattered pile. Fine stone slab, stone brick 2. Description: a stone slab processed from stone bricks, can be used indoors and outdoors. In the Lord's book, the blueprint for ordinary stone slabs had already been unlocked. Each stone slab was processed from 3 pieces of stone, and the current fine stone slab should be an advanced version of ordinary stone slabs, requiring 2 stone bricks to synthesize. Compared to the material consumption, ordinary stone slabs were more cost-effective. Currently, the streets of various cities and the main roads connecting the cities were being paved with stone slabs. Fine stone slabs were more suitable for indoor use or special occasions. Exquisite sun array pattern, stone slab, exquisite stone slab 1, mithril 1, sun essence 1. Description: a complete array pattern, injecting the temperature of the sun into the exquisite stone slab. Exquisite stone slab? Fang Hao immediately searched in the Lord's book. Sure enough, He found the requirement for exquisite stone slab as a consumable material for the gargoyle stone armor. Now both blueprints required exquisite stone slabs. From now on, he would also need to pay attention to this, or directly place orders with the Merchant Alliance for acquisition. The exquisite sun array pattern stone slab was not difficult to understand on the walls of the cave just now. He could see stone slabs carved with the sun array pattern, although Fang Hao didn't have a chance to touch them. Lori had complained that these stone slabs emitted a considerable temperature. When winter came, they could serve as a heater, or be laid directly on the ground to become underfloor heating. They were indeed excellent and practical items. Heavy black iron bolt, tough wood 5, iron 3, cast iron block 2, metal parts 1. Description: bolts commonly used for ballista-type siege weapons. Needless to say, these were the bolts shot from the mechanisms. Although called bolts, their length and thickness were more like javelins or spears, but they needed to be used with machinery. That noble cane sword this blueprint was obtained before, so the current one was a duplicate that he would sell it in the channel later. After reviewing all the blueprints, he recorded them all using the Lord's book. Looking at the team still filling the hole not far away, he scratched his belly. Not long after, "All right, it's filled," and Jia returned with the people. The original temple had been razed to the ground, and the gravel and statues were thrown into the hole and covered with soil within 2 days. Even the traces of the new soil on the ground would disappear as if the temple had never existed. Let's go back. Everyone boarded the bone dragon and began to return to the territory. Returning to the territory, it was already 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Flipping off the bone dragon, Fang Hao commanded, "Throw these corpses into the skeleton conversion field and send this batwing to the organ museum." The graveyard guardians acted according to orders. This harvest was considered smooth. Fang Hao got what he wanted, but he was still one body part away from completing the final task, and no need to guess which organ it is. Only the body is left. However, there are no clues for the last body. "Master, lunch is ready." Error walked over at this moment. "Okay, good." Fang Hao walked back to the Lord's Hall, and Error brought up the prepared lunch. Lunch was a little simple, but after a busy morning, he was really hungry. "Error, I just discovered today that Fang Hao is quite fair-skinned," and Jia said casually after finishing her story about the temple adventure today. Cough, cough. Fang Hao coughed lightly. Error narrowed her eyes slightly, looked at the two of them, and asked curiously, "How did you discover that?" "I discovered it in the woods, while playing with caterpillars," and Jia said immediately. Fang Hao spat out a mouthful of fruit wine, choking himself badly. So quickly. "Has he gotten a nickname?" "Caterpillar." "Yes, it's this long, soft, and feels quite comfortable to touch," and Jia gestured with her hand. Fang Hao was someone who had seen great storms, but he felt a little embarrassed by what Jia said. He said, "Cough." And Jia, "Don't go too far. You're attacking my character." And Jia was stunned. "What's attacking your character?" She looked at Error again. "Error, have you seen a caterpillar?" Error's face instantly turned red, and even her 2 big ears started to blush. I haven't seen one." "Then next time I see one, I'll catch it and show it to you." "Catch?" "Yes. Today I caught 2, one white and one green. They move forward arching. It's so fun." A caterpillar?" "Yes." "Haha. Then I've seen them. There are many on the trees." Error laughed loudly. Her face still flushed. Fang Hao heavily exhaled a breath. He suddenly felt an itch on his stomach. This little girl actually played with caterpillars on his stomach. That's too much. When there's a chance, he'll have to discipline her properly. The lunchtime ended in the 2 girls giggling. Just as he walked out of the Lord's mansion, not far away, many orcs were walking over. Before going to the temple in the morning, Fang Hao used divine descent to contact Petty, the pigman chieftain, that he asked her to arrange for troops to arrive at the main city in the afternoon. This team was the orc squad that Petty had arranged to come. The leader was an old acquaintance. The pigman Bolton. He was wearing metal plate armor and had a long knife hanging on his waist. Fang Hao hadn't seen Bolton for some time. He looked much stronger than before. "Lord." Bolton hurriedly saluted. The orcs behind him also knelt down to salute. These orcs came from various large and small orc villages north of the territory. After being unified by Fang Hao, they also began to coexist peacefully in Pigman Village. As the first village to be attached to Fang Hao, also had a certain status among the northern orc villages. Okay, you've worked hard along the way. Everyone, get up, Fang Hao said, nodding. The orcs stood up and stood respectfully to the side. This was not their small village. The hundreds of thousands of undead outside the city made it impossible for them to relax. And even their hearts were hanging. Lord, what should we do this time? Bolton asked. Okay, you guys wait a moment, Fang Hao said, and called a maid. Go and call Dimitka. Yes, master. The maid ran towards Dimitka's residence. Not long after, Dimitka, wearing armor and holding a long sword, walked over. Fang Hao then said to the orcs present, "This is Dimitka, a powerful orange tier 8 hero. This time, you will follow his command and participate in a guaranteed victory battle. After you return, I will give you rewards based on your performance." When the orcs heard that the lizard man in front of them was an orange tier 8 hero, their mouths grew wide. The highest tier they had heard of was Skull, Crusher of the Cold Wind Mountains. But that was only a purple. Tier 9 hero. It was impossible to compare with the lizard man in front of them. And later, when Fang Hao promised to give them rewards after they returned, joy appeared on their faces. When they came out, they had already been notified that they would participate in the battle. Now Fang Hao's promise was an unexpected surprise. Moreover, the rewards promised by the Lord must be good. The poorest pigman village had become the best of all the villages after receiving Fang Hao's support. The living conditions were much better than those of the large orc tribes. If they made contributions and received Fang Hao's support, their village would also benefit and become better. The orcs immediately changed direction and respectfully saluted Dimitka. Greetings, Lord Dimitka. We are willing to listen to your command. Okay, you come with me. I'll tell you about the deployment. Dimitka began to give the final command. These orcs were not used in combat, but served as messengers. The number of undead soldiers was too large, so orders needed to be issued in groups. Yes, Lord Dimitka. The orcs turned and left with Dimitka. Dimitka left with the orcs. Fang Hao didn't idle either. He needed to go to the barracks to prepare the soldiers Dimitka needed for the expedition. First, he came to the bone burial ground to recruit. The bone burial ground currently had two types of soldiers: skeleton warriors and skeleton spearmen. Both types of soldiers were tier 2'd, although the tier was low. The battlefield still emphasized a combination of soldiers. Maybe there were places where soldiers were restrained. Besides, he had enough wriggling spines in his hand, so he didn't care about the consumption. Recruitable. Skeleton warrior. Cost: 2 wriggling spines. Recruit. Adjust the number of recruits to 1,000. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited 101,000 skeleton warriors. Large swaths of light flashed, and 100,000 skeleton warriors filled the open space in front of him. The rooftops and large spaces in the territory. Seeing this situation many times, there was nothing strange about it. Let the skeleton warriors go outside to stand by. Fang Hao continued to recruit spearmen. Recruitable. Skeleton spearmen. Cost: 2 wriggling spines. Recruit. The number was also 1,000. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited 1,010,000. Skeleton spearmen. Large swaths of skeleton spearmen appeared again. He still let them wait outside the door. After recruiting the soldiers from the bone burial ground, Fang Hao continued to go to the giant stone mausoleum shooting range. An undead mage tower. He recruited soldiers in batches. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited 202,000 graveyard guardians. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited 202,000 skeleton archers. Hundredfold amplification triggered. Recruited 202,000 undead mages. A total of 800,000 troops stood mightily at the gathering place outside the territory.